Hello, my most amazing artists. This month, we are talking about the artist Charley Harper. Charley Harper was an artist, an illustrator, and a conservationist. You might not have seen the word conservationist before, but basically, what they would do is just protect animals, plants, and natural resources. So he was very into conserving, and that was a passion of his as well. Harper was born in West Virginia in 1922, and he died in Cincinnati in 2007. He is best known for his wildlife art. He described his style as minimal realism, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. He said, I don't try to put everything in, I try to leave everything out. So when he was working on an illustration, he didn't want to illustrate every single detail. He tried to illustrate just the basic shapes. Here is a picture of Charley Harper and his wife. Her nickname was Eddie. Her full name is Edith Riley McKee, and they actually both are artists. Charley Harper he fought in World War II. And here's also a picture of him working in his office at the Ford Times. He actually illustrated many covers for that magazine. Here is another picture of him working in his studio in the basement. You can see he and his wife are both working in the studio. I had mentioned that she was an artist as well, so she is painting a picture. And you can see it looks like he is creating an illustration. So they made a studio for themselves in their basement. Here is one of his covers that he illustrated for the Ford Times. And another one of his drawings and his paintings. You might remember from last week, we did the illustration of the cardinal. And if you're in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, we actually also did an illustration of a cardinal flying. So this image of the cardinal might look very familiar. You can see, like I had mentioned, his style using minimal realism, that the bird looks very realistic, but it is just the basic shapes that he uses to create his art. You can see here there are so many animals and objects, I guess, from the wildlife. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo? Can you find the butterfly? What about the owl? Can anyone see the owl? Can you find the seashell? How about, can you find the snake? And the turtle? And there's lots of fish. There are so many amazing illustrations here packed into one. What about the bat? Can you see the bat? Ooh, that one snuck up on me. That was hard to find. What else do you see? Here is an illustration of some pets, dogs and cats and birds and parrots. And a few more of his dog illustrations. This one dog has a cat on its head. Do you ever think a dog would allow a cat to sit on its head like that? Maybe. Here's a sleeping cat. Oh, and there's a cat looking at the fish in the fishbowl. Do you see it? You can see that all of his illustrations are just basic shapes. Look at all the circles and the triangles and the rectangles and the squares. Here are some of his animal illustrations as well. You can see he uses line and shape, and the lines create texture. Here are some insect illustrations and some birds at the sea, some seashells. We're going to go over a few facts about Charley Harper. The first fact is that he grew up on a farm. You can see here's an illustration of a rooster. He actually never liked to do chores, though, at the farm, which is why he wanted to be an artist. He didn't want to own a farm when he grew up. I think he probably wanted to move far away from the farm. He actually knew he was a good artist early on. Another fact is that his work has inspired art in new media. So he painted pictures that were on canvas, but then a lot of his illustrations are on bags and shirts and earrings. He actually, his patterns are very popular for quilt makers. Speaking of a quilt, you might remember our Artist of the Month from last month, Faith Ringgold. She loved to make quilts. His early work wasn't only about Cincinnati, where he had lived. He had done a few art pieces too in West Virginia, but most of his work that you see would be from places like the Cincinnati Zoo and other areas. He created this mural. Can you imagine seeing this in person? If you look closely, you can see all of the little squares put together to make up each of the animals. So then when you look at it far away, you can see how that was all pieced together. It's pretty incredible. If you're ever in Cincinnati, you need to check it out and let me know what it looks like. And take pictures too. Here's some more of his bird illustrations. And again, we said that his career started as a wildlife artist when he was a commercial artist for the Ford Times. I had mentioned that he had created his own style, this minimal realism, where he just used the basic shapes to create his art. And you can see that throughout his images. He is just always using those basic shapes, but it still looks like what he wants it to look like. It still looks like an animal or a bird. It's just the very, very basics, the minimal, the very minimum is what he uses to create. He actually didn't want to paint the birds exactly as they were. He said that if you wanted the bird to look exactly like it was, you can have a picture, or he didn't want his paintings to look exactly like the bird. He wanted something else to be learned from looking at his art. So he really used his imagination and his creativity to come up with his designs. This is actually one of my favorites. I absolutely love this illustration. It's so fun. With a parent's permission, you might check on Instagram and check out his account. Even though he died in 2007, like I had mentioned, he actually has an Instagram account, and it's called Charley Harper Art. And the people who run his studio at the Charley Harper Art Studio, they put this page out. So you can go check it out, and you can see all of his artworks there. This is actually a mural. One of his mural designs. And you can see how big the mural is by looking at the dog. This actually looks incredible. I love seeing all the shapes and how it all comes together. And this is actually one of his last artworks that he made during his life, of the cardinal kind of sitting on a polar bear and kind of from a polar bear's perspective. I hope you learned a little bit about Charley Harper from these slides and from these images. Be sure today on the Google form, I'm going to ask you what facts, or share one fact that you learned about Charley Harper. So you're going to share that with me. Also, you're going to head over and work on your art lesson this week, inspired by Charley Harper. And if you like anything that you create, to share with me on an email on Schoology or on Flipgrid. I would love to see what you create. Friends, until next time, please stay creative.